Brussels, nothing like the Sprouts. but but no, Brussels. So I got to Brussels first because I was always going to get there before you.
Yeah.
Because you're bike train, and so I was like, all right, let me get to Brussels and set up the and basically make sure that we have food in the apartment, that I'm there, and that everything's okay. And I got to Brussels after going after a week in Lille. And remember, the trains have been on strike, so I left Paris on a bus, and I left Lille on a bus as well. And the thing about bus stations is that thankfully they're with train stations, but unfortunately, because buses are the transit of the lower class,
Uh-huh.
they don't. It's very difficult to comfortably move from the position of being on the bus to uh, to being in uh, being in a cab or getting to the bathroom. It's like buses are usually in the back of the building there, or basically a space where the second you get off, you're immediately in the way. So, so I was lucky because I took a I basically crossed the street with all the stuff, and fortunately there was a cab who was dropping somebody off right as I arrived, and I said, "You," before he could take another fare. And so I told him where I was going, where we were going, where we lived in Brussels was basically a suburb,
Yeah.
and it was, and so it was nothing like any of the other neighborhoods. So it was possible to take public transit, but even if I took public transit, I would have had to take all my crap another mile, at least like a mile and a half.
Yeah, and you were carrying a lot of stuff on your own because I I spent a week traveling by bicycle from Paris to Brussels, and I, even though my bicycle has panniers, I couldn't carry all of my stuff in the panniers as I had planned. And fortunately, you were kind enough to carry a lot of my stuff with you. So not only you had your stuff, but you had the rest of my stuff. And I just wanted to mention something about related to that thing that you said about the buses. That's the buses being uh, a resource for the normally reserved for the poor. It's not like that in Mexico because
No, it's not.
in Mexico we don't have trains,
Oh
not for passengers. We used to, but now we don't. And buses are the norm normally.
yeah, beautiful.
Um,
They're beautiful.
there are different segments. There are cheap buses and expensive buses, but buses are the norm. Besides airplanes and low cost airlines, but that's more recent. Uh, but yeah, buses are not normally relegated to the poor class in Mexico. they are most common than not. And so yeah, you had a lot of stuff.
No, and so we got to our place, and ironically, I never did figure out that key. Sometimes the key was just against me, but basically, I got into this communal space where basically we had the top floor,
Yeah,
and the staircase was very very narrow, but
yeah,
it was it was very well laid out.
yeah,
Like it was a delight to stay there. I was really excited. The first thing I saw were fluffy towels.
mm-hmm.
And if there is one thing that we have learned, it is that having the right towel is key to a comfortable bathing experience.
Yeah,
And like and that's like the towel makes the bathing almost as much as hot water does. And we so basically I arrived, and because there is also Uber in Brussels, uh, I basically did Uber Eats to go grocery shopping, because I was like, I just carried all this crap is basically upstairs. I actually got help to carry the suitcase because that was, as we both discovered, just one of the heaviest things. And after all the travel, I just couldn't do it. And and I put and so I was like, all right, let me get groceries. Let me get very basic groceries so that there is food in this house when you got there. And so I did this order, and it was fantastic. You were coming using basically Google directions as opposed to the Eurovelo.
yeah. Because if I had taken the rest of the Eurovelo route, I would have gotten there by Tuesday, and it was Sunday, and the weather was about to change, and I couldn't take it anymore. The the basically I ran out of time, and so I decided to take the to follow the Google route, and I ended up going for the last 80 kilometers by train, and I got to Brussels, and it was night. It was at night time when I got there, and I rode my bicycle from the north station to the house, which was in the suburbs, and it was a long ride. But most of all, uh, what I found strange is that uh, those suburbs reminded me a little bit of the suburbs in Texas,
Yes.
but there was one thing that I found particularly odd, and it was that the side, the some of the parts, because it wasn't only the fact that it was a suburbs, it was on the edge of the suburb, and I found it strange that there were a few corn fields next to the sidewalk. I was riding my bicycle next to the sidewalk, and there was a cornfield right there and then in a neighborhood.
Metropolitan area,
Yeah, metropolitan area,
basically.
and there wasn't anything anything protecting the cornfield. I didn't understand how to prevent kids from messing around with the field, or
And
uh,
kids will.
and kids will. Yeah,
As a woman who grew up in a farming state where, even though I lived in Austin, I knew what cow tipping was. Uh, Kids will mess with farms. That's just what it is. And
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
yeah, and but yeah, I finally got there, and and thank you for getting the groceries because it was a nice surprise getting there. Tired, humid, uh, stinky, and having the fridge filled with delicious stuff. That I took the warmest shower that I've ever taken. That was very very nice. Thank you for getting the groceries.
No, and one of the and it was funny the thing about the towels are so important that the hostel that I stayed in Lille, uh, called the People, and it's only a French. Basically, it's only a French series of hostels. They've got a bunch of locations. You actually paid more to get a fluffy towel. That's how much they understand that makes the bath, and it was and so after my experience backpacking, I completely understood your joy at showering for the first time after a week, and
Yeah,
I am also just vehemently grateful for the fact that we had the place to ourselves.
yeah,
Um, and because what you want to do after a week of backpacking or touring, you want to take a shower, you want to eat some food,
yeah,
and you want to go to sleep. Literally in that order.
yeah,
Like, you don't, like, people saying, oh, well, maybe you'll get dressed and go out to dinner. Maybe for experienced people, but even the videos that you showed me, that's what it seemed like they did. They took a shower. Well, actually, because they were videos, they signed off, they took a shower, they had a meal, and then they went to bed.
yeah,
And and so uh, and my first thought was the next day was, oh, okay, well, you're gonna sleep all day. And not only did you not sleep all day, your first thought was laundry. We must find laundry immediately. And I was
yeah,
like, we're not gonna rest.
yeah. All of my clothes were humid, were damp and stinky, and and I couldn't bear that.
No. And so the first thing we did was go to a communal laundry. And I will say this about communal laundry in general. I think it makes more sense. I think this whole game of everybody has their own washer and dryer is kind of goofy. I think that that's just a great way to waste energy. I also remember being way too excited when I got to Mexico about line drying because I had an aunt who dried clothes on a line, and the sun disinfects, and because it's wafting in the wind, it also kind of irons the clothes.
Yeah,
So I am like, I prefer. I think at this point in life, I just as long as I have access to a washing machine, I don't care, and because I don't mind drying on a line.
yeah,
But what I did not like was number one, the washing the buses were irregular. So basically, the first thing we did to get to the laundry was walk 2 miles.
oh yeah,
and, and that was everything I didn't want to do the next day.
yeah.
But basically, I was like, okay, well, we can do this. I'm about it.
You also were wearing shoes that were smaller, smaller size.
And ironically, I didn't check it out. I just thought I needed to break them in. I was convinced that all I needed to do was break them in. But I wore shoes that were too small for me every day beginning in August and ending in October. So basically, that's 2 months of shoes that don't fit.
Yeah.
Where I'm convinced, no, 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 I have to keep breaking them in. It'll work. It'll work. My feet are still regaining circulation after that experience, and it's one of the reasons why I would tell anybody, I don't care how poor you are, um, you have to be on your feet.
Yeah.
Unless you have a uh, disability that allows you otherwise, but even still, your foot health is something that you just cannot neglect.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. So the first thing we did was go walk 2 miles to go do laundry. And even though we had cash, it wasn't taking cash.
Yeah.
And even though, and so we're like, okay. And then there was no bathroom. And I met with a very rude shop owner who wouldn't take certain denominations of euros and acted like I was a nuisance.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then graciously, I met a barkeep who was like, "Oh no, I don't want public urination. So yes, please use my bathroom." So I was lucky that way, um, and we got laundry done. So that was, and then we went immediately back to the house.
Yeah.
Um, to rest.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah.
With the clean clothes, I felt so much better then.
Yeah.
And then what we do? What did we do?
And then the next day we had to go out because we had to go find our sites. Now, Brussels was different because we had basically one day's worth of sites.
Yeah, there weren't. We had like 3 or 4 places to visit, and yeah, we were there. We went there mostly because it was in on our way to the Netherlands, and because the Airbnb was very very cheap. We considered other options. We considered uh, uh,
We wanted to go to Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and Utrecht.
yeah,
And I actually mentioned uh, the fact that I had wanted to meet a colleague in Utrecht who had come to Austin. But not only had I realized that even when I contacted her, she never responded. Um, but I, uh, but I also saw, because I had thought about basically going to the Netherlands while you were touring, that it was very expensive. And this is kind of the whole issue with countries that have a great reputation. It's like a great reputation equals expensive. And while people say, "Oh, it's because you're paying for equality," it's like, yes, but that's basically saying that only certain people are allowed to be there.
yeah,
And everybody has to be there because, as we discussed in the Paris episode, all of these quote unquote great places run on batteries. And the batteries have to live there too.
yeah, but they are relegated to the
Outskirts.
outskirts, to the places where you have to spend 1 or 2 hours to get your job, to be a battery. uh, to play your part in the play that takes place in in the touristic part of the city, where you're not only you are you're not only uh, basically relegated from the fun stuff that goes on there. You your part is being in the backstage, being in the back of the house.
And watching everybody else have a good time.
Yeah,
That's effectively your job.
yeah. Seeing all these people that you wonder what do they do? Like when do they work? It's a Wednesday at
At
1
two
p.m. At
o'clock,
2
like what are you
o'clock.
doing?
Why are they so carelessly drinking coffee and chatting? What do they do? I want to do that.
Well, and quite frankly, for although that was a problem that you ran into on the tour, just like it was a problem that I noticed in Lille, where it's like, we don't have to be at work like the crazy Americans, so things are just closed.
That also happened. Well, that happens in every major city, but uh, I also remember feeling that in Mexico City. Uh, but yeah,
But no, so yeah, we did basically not only that, but the image of Europe that you have is trains that are amazing and they go really fast and so forth. Well, some do,
some do
but most trains are
go on strike.
yeah, they go on strike or they're just kind of like mad. They're basically just buses on railroads.
Yeah,
And so it was gonna take, what was it, 4 hours to get to Amsterdam, and
mm-hmm.
like 2 hours to get to Rotterdam, and like 6 hours to get to Utrecht because Utrecht is slightly north. And we were like, okay, well then what can we do with this?
Yeah. We also continued the conversation that we left in Paris unfinished, which was this is costing much more than we thought, and I think we need to go back to Mexico, and let's continue in Brussels. Actually, I don't know if we mentioned this in the last episode, but before leaving Paris, we bought an flight to Mexico.
Yes, because that's how we had to get the refund. We actually did mention that a couple of episodes before.
Oh,
Yeah, no, we did mention that we had to get our ticket.
yeah.
And we were going to be like, all right, let's go back to Mexico after Brussels.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And that was it. That was going to be the end of it. But in Brussels, we had the time and the patience and the comfort because we ended up doing all those things in Paris outside of our Airbnb because we needed to leave by 10 a.m. and we ran out of time, but we still had the Wi-Fi, so we did all of that freezing, sitting on the sitting
outside of our room.
Outside of our room, where we could still catch Wi-Fi. But now in Brussels, we were inside of this very beautiful garret, and on a very comfy bed, with food. So
and a great shower.
yeah, so we at that point, I think we already had a reply from the URL people who kindly
refunded it. Oh yeah.
Refunded it?
No, we got refunded the day right before the strike. Like basically, you left, and when I got to Lille, after Paris,
Uh-huh.
I got I got an email saying your refund was processed,
Oh, you're right.
and so we were all set.
Yeah. And so that made us uh, question, because when we bought the airplane ticket to Mexico, we paid, I think, an extra $150 each
Yes,
for,
$300 to be
yeah,
able to cancel it.
for the right to cancel it and get our money back, no questions asked. And and fortunately, my cousin, with whom we stayed at Enschede in the Netherlands, and another cousin who invited us to stay with her and her family in Berlin, uh, we got those two confirmations that we could stay with them without paying for lodging. Then that's how we decided to cancel the flight back to Mexico and go on. Wow, I had just forgot about how stressful were those days, because
Oh, they were ridiculously stressful.
yeah, because the uncertainty, uh, the risk was huge.
But it was also a good, if we were going to, if we started off seeing family, it's kind of like we ended with family, number one. Number two, I mean, almost nobody visits those family members
Yeah,
because because they're so far,
yeah,
and it actually is more expensive to fly from Europe to Mexico than it is to fly from Mexico to Europe.
yeah,
And that was an interesting discovery we found, because especially considering the immigration conversation that we have been having in the United States, basically it is, in theory, very cheap to get to the United States. It is very expensive to get from the United States. And remember, when the empire uses batteries, it's calling people batteries because it doesn't want to pay uh, migrants to do the work that we pretend we don't want done.
yeah,
And so basically, like, you paid a huge chunk of money to just so that we could get that refund. And even though you were like, but $300 extra, I was like, absolutely not.
hmm,
If we got surprised with family that wants to see us, then we are not going to, then anything could happen.
yeah,
Anything did not happen. And we ended up going to Frankfurt, flying out of Frankfurt, because ironically that was the cheapest.
yeah.
But yeah, but
Well, the
yeah.
cheapest without uh, stepping a foot in the United States.
Yes.
There were cheaper routes, but yeah, that's a thing for another episode.
Yeah. But basically, the good thing about Brussels is that it was basically a place to recharge.
Yes,
That is,
to
which,
rest, reassess, and recharge.
like,
But
in,
urbanistically, did you like it?
I thought it was very disorganized.
Me
Like,
too.
I thought that you had to be from Brussels to appreciate it.
Yeah,
And for me, that's what I enjoyed about London and Paris. And screw it, Guadalajara and Mexico City. I don't think that you have to be from those places to see interesting things and spend and have a good time. I don't like, and also Monterey. It's like it is very easy in my opinion to get around those places and find interesting stuff. Now, Fort Worth, which is actually where we started this whole voyage, now that place is difficult to get around, but that's because the United States is car centric. I was surprised that Brussels was so convoluted because it is a European city.
What does convoluted mean?
It just means mixed around and disorganized.
Yeah, I felt it remind actually I felt it's funny that you mentioned it that you felt you in Guadalajara in Mexico City you felt like it was easy to get around. In Brussels I it reminded me a bit of Mexico because of how disorganized it was. Because number one, the North Station, was it the North Station or the Central Station? The one with uh, uh, the one we went to when we got out of there.
Gare du Nord.
Gare du Nord. Uh,
The
and
North Stations.
that one was in construction. They were it was being remodeled,
Yeah.
and so the taxi left us at a. It was
It
supposed
was
to
the
be.
back.
Yeah, it was a back, and it was supposed to be a temporary entrance or access to the building, but it was so sketchy. Uh, it felt so sketchy, like it was weird that that was the official, even though it wasn't the regular entrance of the building. It was very improvised.
Well, and it was like it didn't make you want like the what I actually also enjoy about stations in general is that they're kind of like you can get everything there.
And you can see them very easily. They have a plaza outside. People meet outside.
I
Uh,
mean, it's a meeting
it's
spot.
a meeting spot. You get a you get a respite outside of them.
You get a respite.
Respite.
Yes.
You get a
Yes.
respite outside of them, and a second to find your way and find where you want to go. But this place was,
No, it was like this is your punishment for taking the train.
yeah.
Now, on the flip side, we got to leave early.
Oh yeah.
We got to leave early from Brussels.
Yeah,
We
inside of the station everything was fine.
yeah.
But then again, the city, I don't know.
It didn't make me want to scramble back there. Like
I
it really didn't.
Yeah, I like the metro.
Yes. The metro was nice.
Yeah, the metro had I thought it was very luxurious, but not like luxurious like the one in Paris, which to me I thought it was very futuristic. Not all of them, but I remember once the metro in Paris had this like glow on the ceiling that changed from violet to blue to green to red to yellow, and and it had very organic and futuristic details. And this one in Brussels, it had a lot of luxurious details, but like old school, like
Mm-hmm.
leather handles. It had like wooden details also in the cars. It felt a little bit like old money.
Right. And which is interesting because one of the sites is like we couldn't even enter,
Yeah,
but it's like that's what Brussels felt like, old money.
old money.
And it's like, eh. I mean, if you're into old money, then yeah, okay. But like, if you're just like, I'm just here to visit because I don't know anything about this place. But fortunately, like I said, we spent most of our time there resting and
Yeah.
strategizing.
And when we went to visit the places, it wasn't like Paris or London, uh, or even afterwards Berlin, uh, cities where we could visit uh, a lot of the places at the same time in one
Yes, you
like
could.
connect the dots. Like, okay, we have 7 dots very close from each other, so let's start from this one to this one to this one to this one in a very pedestrianly friendly
Heck,
manner.
we took bonus sites because it
Yeah.
was so well organized.
Yeah, but in Brussels, they were so distant from one another that we normally got to them using the metro. And even the parts where we walked, I didn't feel like they were pedestrianly friendly.
No.
One thing that I do remember is that it was safe because I saw kids driving the bus
Mm-hmm.
or the metro on their own. I just remember that traumatic episode where you needed to use the toilet.
Oh my gosh, no, that porta potty, that was awful. That was awful.
Wow.
And you wanted to take all of your stuff in there, and I was like, don't do that. And then you looked at it and you're like, absolutely not. Because here's
Yeah.
the thing, there are lots of porta potties around France, around Brussels, around the area, but that one was disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I was literally having twitches just now remembering that bathroom experience. It was so gross. And
Okay, so I won't give details.
please don't. But no. And so because we basically just had a day of sights, like I said, Brussels was a place of rest, which was good because it's like, I didn't really want to like it didn't make me think, oh, you know what I should do? I should amble around.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like they don't know what to do with tourists.
Yeah.
That I don't think they have a plan to receive tourists. I don't think they plan it. I think they are just people working, living their lives, but I don't think they care too much about tourism, to
Which
be honest.
okay, fair, but you do have basically it's not reasonable to basically be because they do advertise. I mean, they do want people to come there, but it's like how do you want people to come there? Where would you like people to go? What about this place would seem uh now to be fair, we were our trip was unique because we weren't just trying to be tourists. We were trying to it was a scouting trip. And a scouting trip means we were seeing how things work. If I got a job offer in Brussels tomorrow, I'd be like, let me think about
I will
it.
I will definitely take it because it's weird. When I rode my bike from the train station to the apartment in the suburbs, I after a week of not being in a big city and just going through small towns, I actually was loving it. The bicycle infrastructure that it has, it's impressive. It's I think it wasn't as in the Netherlands, in which I didn't feel safe as a pedestrian, because in Brussels I felt like the pedestrian still was the king,
Right.
and then it was the bicycle on second place.
Right. Whereas in the Netherlands, it's like if you're walking, forget you.
Yeah,
And like it's like, but doesn't everybody? No, forget you. Like there was literally a stretch, a 1 mile stretch from a university to a downtown center where there was no sidewalk for like half a mile, and we would have
yeah.
been walking in grass, and we decided no, we're taking the bus because I'm not having this.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And but basically, yes, that is a thing about Brussels. And I would argue that that's actually a thing about Europe. There are lots of people not driving. There are lots of people driving, but
Yeah,
also lots of people not driving. You're
yeah,
not interesting if you're not driving.
definitely. I I did love that from Brussels. That's why I'm like, I didn't see many tourists. I saw people living their lives. I saw
Mm-hmm.
students going to school or coming from school. I saw uh, people going to work or coming from work. I I didn't see many people with cameras. I didn't see many people wandering around. Uh, I saw a very um, a very safe city, and it's not a small city. Uh, I thought it was very safe, and
There were also black people everywhere, by the way.
yeah,
Like for people who think that European cities are basically uh, predominantly white. Yes, they are, but black people are not hiding in the gutter. They're everywhere. Like there's not even in the like our Airbnb. No, it wasn't an Air. It was a hotel. Our it was actually a booking.
okay,
Our booking was owned by an African migrant. They were all over the suburb. Um, they were all over the central city. Like black people in Brussels is not interesting,
yeah,
which was lovely because people did not stare.
yeah. I did like to live. I liked it. If somebody offered me a job there, I will definitely take it because because it's bike friendly, because it's very mixed, and it seems like it has a lot of, like you just said, if you're not you don't if you don't live there, then what are you doing there?
Yeah.
I did like it a lot because it wasn't a huge city, it wasn't also a small city.
Hmm.
Now, if I were given options like Brussels or Berlin, well, that would be a different
No,
matter.
that is a completely different conversation, and it's actually not even fair.
Yeah,
But no, I it was a restful place to
yeah,
be, and that's what was helpful.
yeah. It it was what we needed it to be
Yes.
for the time that we went there. Now we didn't go to Bruges,
Yeah,
uh,
Bruges.
Bruges. We didn't go to Ghent. I don't know how is it pronounced.
Yeah, I think it's Ghent.
Ghent. We, to be fair, we probably. I would like to go back, probably, if I'm in the neighborhood. Like if we are in Europe again,
Yeah.
for a weekend, I think it would be nice to go to Bruges and in Ghent.
Look, we're going to Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and
Yeah,
Utrecht
yeah.
if we get back to the Netherlands.
Because we skipped those places.
And that was kind of like one of your the only reason you saw one of your major architects was because he had a building in Berlin.
Yeah,
And but other than that, it was yeah.
yeah.
So
You mean?
Rem Koolhaas.
Oh no, we didn't see the Rem Koolhaas.
We saw the one in Berlin.
No. There was one in Berlin, but we didn't go.
Museum? We didn't go to the museum?
Oh, you mean the National Gallery?
Yes.
No, that's about Mies van der Rohe.
Mills Vandera. Okay,
Mies van der
sorry.
Rohe. Yeah.
And this is how you know that Lalo is the architect and I am the planner.
and actually, he's way more important than Rem Koolhaas. He is like the grandfather of Rem Koolhaas.
but no, it was what we needed it to be, and it was it was a fine settling for not getting to go to the Netherlands. But no, I think I think that, like I said, I'd have to think about it. But of course, if we both got jobs, then we're definitely going.
Yeah,
but
also, it's cheaper.
It is cheaper. It is cheaper than most of our European experience.
Yeah, it wasn't expensive to fly from there to Mexico. The rent was cheaper than Paris and London.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have probably many attractions. But maybe I didn't look.
But again, we weren't really there for that. You and I have a different kind, like, because otherwise we would have gone to the Eiffel Tower and then we would have been sad. Like, you and I don't even buy souvenirs.
Yeah.
So tourism is kind of a meh thing for us. Yeah. But no, restful areas are something that's going to be a huge issue in the coming days. So yeah, Brussels is not terrible, but it does give me pause. So
I also think that people were nice enough.
They were, except for that one racist incident. Yes, there were.
Yeah. But yeah, also the bus system. It's kind of it wasn't as easy to navigate as in other cities. I found it. Number one, I think there were 2 apps.
Yes. Wait, no. That was for the trains.
Oh, yeah.
That was for the trains. Please.
You're right.
Because we will have to talk about. Oh my gosh, we'll have to talk about the trains. That is actually going to be an entirely different episode. It was just that irritating.
But remember that we couldn't find
there was a bus.
A kiosk to buy the.
We couldn't find a kiosk to find the tickets because they don't have a ticket machine at every single stop.
Again, if you don't live there, I mean, if you live there, you already have the card and
you're fine.
You're fine. You have the app or whatever. Maybe you encounter problems the first day, but then you're good to go. But for tourists, I think they don't make it as easily to navigate,
right,
as other bigger cities.
No. And so yeah. But if you're looking for a place to rest, it is a restful European city.
Yeah.
So that's us on Brussels. And the next thing we will get to will be the entire train fiasco. And yes, and you will learn that while trains are fantastic in Europe, and they are, you will lose the romance.
Yeah, it's not like Before Sunrise.
Yes, it is. It like all the things where you're like, we'll always have Paris. Yeah, we will always have Paris, but not for the reasons you think. So yes, this is us signing off, and we will talk to y'all later.
Over and out.
Over and out.